They say to know a man, you have to walk a mile in his moccasins. I'm Mountain Mike, and I've made it my life's work to get back to the kind of basics you can only find out here. Welcome to another episode of The Western Leatherman. In this segment, I'm going to show you how to make a pistol holster, one like would be used by the old West gunslingers. This holster is known as the one-piece Mexican single loop in a cross-draw style. Various decorations can be added to this design, and a gunslinger can get as wild and crazy as he wants. But today, we're going to keep this rather simple. These are the tools you're going to need for this particular project. First, we have the paper. This is for making our pattern. There's a rawhide mallet used for setting our seams. A pair of Leatherman pliers. And a Stanley snap-off blade, very important. Steel ruler, 1x12. And a leather little tape type ruler we'll be using in this very project. Our barge contact cement. And a spreader for the same cement. We have an edger, and this is like a little creaser that I've handmade out of an old edger. This is a swivel knife, and a small awl, scratch type for outlining and piercing holes. These two dowels here help in the stretching process, the wet fitting. Pencil we use because we don't use pins on leather. This is our needle and thread. We have a lighter for melting the thread, and also some tape for helping with our pattern. The first tool we'll need to make is a strip of leather that will be used like a tape measure. Cut your piece approximately 1/2 inch wide by about 16 inches long. Cutting a strip from the same leather we'll be making the holster from will give us the proper measurement from the trigger guard around the cylinder back to the trigger guard. Here we mark it. Now we're going to take a 12x16 inch piece of paper and fold it long ways. Now on the strip we made a mark where the trigger guard was. We're now going to cut that. We're going to fold it to find the middle. We lay this mark on the fold. We make a mark at where the outside edge of the trigger guard. This is our reference point. Now we're going to align the fold of the paper with the sight line, top dead center of the pistol, and where we made our mark for our trigger guard. This is our sight line. We'll fold this up and line it with our sight. And that's how you do it. Now that we have our reference point, we'll start with our pencil. And we're going to outline this gun, adding graceful curves where possible. Now we're going to add a 1/2 inch for our welt. The welt is an additional piece of leather that's put into the seam to protect the stitches. And in the welt we want to draw a little curve here for the bottom of the trigger guard to rest on, as so gravity causes the gun to sink further down into the holster. It stops that from falling out the bottom. Now we'll cut out the piece, cutting through both pieces at the same time. Where the top of the gun rests on your belt, we'll leave uncut for now. In the end, we have our finished pattern. Here is our line at the top edge of our belt. We would fold the pattern, put the back piece, and this is how you find this line. And you would draw this and tape these two pieces together so that this panel is behind the holster in such a way. At this point, we would have to mark these holes just below the cylinder and trigger guard to get our loop. I've allowed for a concho in this one, and the holes are marked, and this allows for a 1-inch concho with about 3/8 of an inch spacing around the circle. The holes on the end here are to keep the leather from tearing with the pressure of the gun and holster inside. The holster goes under the loops and makes a one-piece holster. Now comes time to actually cut the leather with your pattern. Remember to select the heaviest piece of the leather, these being the back, the shoulder, and the rump. Stay away from the belly at all times. I've selected this piece. It's a good heavy piece. You need to remember which side, meaning top grain or suede, that you want to have on the outside of the gun. The top of your pattern should match that side. I need a left hand side, right-handed pull, and that's why we lay the pattern just like this. Now, you can use an awl to scratch this line, but I'm going to use a knife. Now I'm going to cut this piece into a little bit rougher cut just so I can have an easier piece to manage. I'm going to be turning this leather to facilitate the power in my hand. So you don't want to be doing away from yourself. Here's what I mean. Now see how I'm drawing the knife towards me but away from my fingers? This gives me the power I need. You must firmly keep the pattern in place because if it moves, it won't fit your gun. Now we're going to mark our holes while we have our pattern in place. These are 5/32 inch holes, and these are the ones that will help the loop from tearing. You should do this kind of thing at the end of every kind of cut and hard leather. Also for the conchos. Now we're going to cut our loop. Now we're going to punch our holes. This is an inline punch, and I use these for any kind of area where you're in the middle of a field and a regular hand punch will not work, like a squeeze type. Now we'll do the wetting process, which precedes the edging. With the number 4 edger, we always want to push away from ourselves, so we'll turn the leather as we go. This way we have the most power with our cut. Okay, now we've finished edging this side. We're going to flip it and do the opposite side. There's one very important thing to remember here, and this edge, this outside edge here, and where this piece folds and meets up to this point, marked here, you don't edge this. This is where your welt will rest. So, now we finished the edging. We flip back over to the outside. We're going to use this little creaser edger that I've designed. This is my own manufacture. It's made out of an old edger, and just sharpen the edge. It gives a little detail to a finished piece. Okay? So we'll start right here in the corner, and we draw towards ourselves with even down pressure, keeping this pushed against the edge. It gives us a little line. And you see how much detail that adds? It just makes it a little prettier. Very important to keep downward, inward from the edge pressure. Turning the piece as you do makes it a lot easier. There it is. Now we're ready for dyeing. Now we have the dyed piece and the welt. I've gone about 2 to 3 hours. You can work this piece slightly damp as long as the glued surface is dry to the touch. That way the glue will stick well. We're going to proceed with marking with our scratch awl the glue area for the welt. Now we're ready to glue. Okay, now we're ready to stitch. We're going to start at the bottom, from the back side. I'm going to go around once, leaving about 4 to 5 inches. You want to make your thread long enough so that you can double back and still have extra. We're going to proceed one stitch at a time, looping this very first one to give us a secure place to begin. Now at about this point, you can pull on it. Make sure you hold on to the other end and give it a good tug and seat those stitches. Now keep going and go about 3 or 4 stitches at a time before you seat them. If you need to use gloves, do so, because this thread can cut your fingers. My hands are rather tough. Okay, I'm finishing off the stitch here, and I'll use a square knot. It's about the most secure. Where did I put the lighter? Now we trim off the excess, about 1/4 inch from the knot. Hold those ends up and melt them into the knot, and that'll help secure it. Right here, press it in. If you're afraid to burn your finger, put a piece of paper down first. And you're done. Now all we're going to do is pound that seam again real quickly. And this will seat the threads. See how nice those threads look now? Now we're going to apply the decoration. We have a concho here. There are other things you can do, tacks, etc., tooling. We're just going to add a simple concho to this. Like I say, we're going to keep it kind of simple. So to apply the concho, we need a little strip of deer skin or soft leather that we can secure it to the holster with. We're going to use our same razor knife. Start with a point. Make it a little larger than the hole at the widest part, than the hole. And that way, when the leather pulls and shrinks, it still fits the hole. Okay? Now, we start from the back side of the holster. Run the laces through. both holes. Make your pieces run even down to the tip. Apply your concho. Now with my conchos, I like to put the top loop through the concho rather than both tips coming out. It looks a little flatter, kind of cleaner. Secure it tightly. Here's where you want to take and add a slit. This is called a Spanish blood knot. Let's seat that first one. And then right at the base of the other slit, we make a smaller second slit. And you're done. The next step before we do the wet fitting is to oil the gun well. This gun's already oiled. And then stick it inside of a plastic bag. Now this is to protect it from the water. You don't want your nice prize gun getting all rusty. So we want to wrap it nice. Okay, we have about 2 minutes on this leather. It's good and wet, nice and supple. That's what we want. We're going to shove that gun down in there, good and strong. Really seat it well. You want to give this a real good rub down, massaging all the little contours. Give it a good one, just like Daddy likes it. Don't spare the pressure. The more you make it fit the gun, the more perfect the fit will be. Slide it in and out a few times. Make sure you like it. Now the next step is to insert the holster through the loop behind these two slits. Okay, you'll have to double the holster a little bit to do it. And it works right in like that. Now, position it where you want it. Make sure it's sweet. Make this fold real nice with your hand here. Reinsert the pistol. And this is where I want you to work this edge here. Give that a nice curl. A real sweet little line there. Last thing we're going to do is punch one small hole here at the bottom, and that's to keep this holster from coming out ever accidentally. Put it through the tip of the holster like this. Bend it up. And that's all there is to it. Now, take another piece of our deer skin, just like we did for our concho. Cut us another strip. And we're going to do another Spanish blood knot, just like on the concho. There she is, ready to go. Not too bad for a day's work. I'm Mountain Mike, and you've just taken one step closer to becoming a Western leather man. Baby, I'm going gunslinging.